Andrew Shotland is an immense contributor to the local SEO community with his column on Search Engine Land, as well as his personal blog, Local SEO Guide. In the past, he was GM for NBC.com, as well as headed the business development for Insider Pages, where he developed an SEO program that attracted over 3 million monthly unique visitors. Insider Pages was acquired by CitySearch, and now he and his team run an agency for clients big and small. Andrew, it is an honor to have you on today. Let's jump in. Andrew, we asked you on today because this issue is dedicated to citations, and you have a slightly different view about Yext than your peers. Or should I say, there are some haters in the SEO community.
So I think this is a classic example of like marketers marketing, or people like having a very insular point of view on the industry. So even the way you word the question, I would say I'd take issue with in a way. First of all, full disclosure, Local SEO Guide has a consulting relationship with Yext. We've been working with them, I think, about 3 years, and we actually are a very, very small investor in Yext. So take everything I say with a grain of salt. I'm hugely biased. That said, we try to be as objective as we can. So it's, I feel free to say whatever you want about Yext. I'll try to defend them or at least argue the point objectively. And so when you say among your peers, I think what you're really saying is among a vocal, it's hard for me to say minority or majority, a vocal number of people who post a lot on the internet. If you look at Yext, they have, I think they announced a month or two ago, they just passed 500,000 locations under management. So it's hard to say it's controversial to work with Yext or recommend Yext, because in that case, 500,000 businesses are controversial. Maybe they are. That said, there are plenty of other solutions that also have a ton of locations under management. I think Brandify has about 100,000. More or less. There's others, Rio SEO, Sim Partners, Location 3, and pretty much every local SEO agency out there has some number of locations they're managing listings for, either via Yext or via some other solution or via their own team. So I don't think it's controversial to say you believe in Yext service or you like Yext service. It's just controversial to a very small number of people, or what I think is a small number of people.
So don't knock it till you try it. When should you use Yext?
So I think, let's not talk about Yext per se at the moment. It's like, what do people need to do about listings management? And then decide, is Yext a good solution for them? And I think historically, the biggest challenge has been, especially with multi-location businesses, I think with all businesses, but multi-location businesses have a really particular hard problem to solve in managing their location data. And so I think the business needs to first prioritize that managing their location data for their locations is a priority, which what we've seen over the last, let's say, 5 years is more and more businesses are starting to understand that, and forget about the SEO implications, like, oh, if you have your NAP consistent, you're going to rank better. That's almost besides the point. It's more like, don't you want your phone number to be right everywhere? Don't you want your address to be correct? Don't you want your business name to be correct? Yeah, it's great if that helps you rank in Google, but if someone's on MapQuest and you have the wrong phone number, that's a problem, or on Apple Maps or wherever. And so what we've seen is a pretty gradual, and now what feels to be much more rapid, acceptance that this is an issue. It's only gotten more complicated, not less. And more businesses are basically finding the budget to deal with this stuff. I imagine 5 years ago, it was pretty ridiculous for someone to come into their boss's office and say, hey, I need $500,000, let's say, to update our phone numbers. I'm sure that got laughed out of the office. But now I think everyone understands, oh yeah, it's a complicated problem. And so the thing we like about Yext is that it helps us solve the problem relatively quickly and cheaply or let's just say cost effectively. That's a better word than cheaply, because people will say, no, it's so expensive. Um, and it doesn't solve the whole problem. It just solves a portion of the problem. And so, and there are plenty of other solutions that are probably just as valid. We just happen to like not spending a lot of time trying to fix screwed up NAP information. And so our process that we use for our multi-location clients and our single location clients is, first we claim the GMB page and make sure that's right. We make sure it's all right on their website. Then we go to Yext and we do a power listing and fix all the problems that Yext fixed. And then we complement that typically with a Moz local blast, just because it's one of the cheaper ways to make sure you cover all the data aggregators. And then a manual update in places where none of those services cover. And so for us, that's the right process, and it gets the job done. We made a decision, I don't know, a year or two ago, where we looked at how much time we were spending doing other ways of updating citations. And, we didn't want to spend the money on Yext either. Even they were a client. Like, I didn't want to spend an extra whatever it took to just have, for the sake of spending it. But when I looked at the time it took to do the job right, I said, well, a few hours of someone's time updating a single or a couple of listings is suddenly equal to what we would have spent all year on a Yext listing. So that's kind of why we use it.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned there being a place for both Moz and Yext at the same time. If you have ever done a NAP cleanup, you understand the real cost is in time.
What we've seen and heard, I've talked to a ton of agencies, a ton of multi-location brands who are, tried their own other multiple solutions. And what we've heard is there's no right solution, right? Everything's imperfect. But what I believe Yext competitors do, which is what we'll call automated manual, meaning they have a system to basically crawl every citation site and automatically log in and request access and update and stuff, is that can work, and works at scale. Like, it's kind of cheap. You just push a button and it kind of works. But it has a huge quality control factor because it's super automated without anyone even, it requires someone to go in and kind of identify problems. And we just see over and over again, those kinds of solutions cause a lot of problems. Not that Yext doesn't cause its own problems, but it's the fact that it's directly controlled from the Yext dashboard that way, it makes it a lot, in our view, for our process, is a lot simpler.
So is speed of live listing to speed of client results also a factor?
Yeah, so as an example, we have a client that has about 300 locations, and they are constantly acquiring new businesses and selling new businesses. And so when they acquire the new business and they rebrand it, we want to fix the NAP information as quickly as possible so that the kind of screwy time between changing brands is as short as possible, so the SEO negative effects of changing brands is as short as possible. And so Yext enables us to do that really fast. But again, I don't want to come out as be like, oh, it's the only way to do it. It's just for us, and for a lot of people who don't, this is I always say to my team, why do we want to spend our brain cells solving these stupid problems when we could be spending our time? It's like an opportunity cost. We can be spending our time doing much more interesting things for our clients that have a much higher value. And so we like the convenience because it frees us up to do other things that have a higher ROI.
I've seen there is a timer ticking from when a client gets on board to when they expect results. With the recent local ranking factors minimizing the importance of citations, are directories still worth your time now?
Yeah, I guess, it's debatable, right? I think it's totally, as you probably know, right? Every case is kind of different, meaning it's all this cluster of different factors that are influencing your rank. So in some cases, It might be, no, you really need to focus more on updating your title tags, for example, or getting links. And but it's funny, we actually look at citations a bit more clinically. Clinically. I look at a citation as a link first and foremost. So we are making sure that. So actually, we're working with a pretty big wholesaler of metal, and they have no local program. We're not even doing local stuff for you. It's like a national local SEO program, a national SEO program, not a local SEO program. And but they've got a bureaucracy. They can't like just getting the ability to update title tags, let's say, has taken 6 months, right? Wow. Because you got to get access to the system. It's like, you got to have 2 keys simultaneously opening the system and letting someone in, and they have to scan your retina, and then there's some
minority report going on here.
Yeah, well, it's not. It'd be great if it were that. It's more like, well, I don't know who has the keys to that. Or I don't know whose job is it to give those people access, or who knows what. But that's besides the point. But what we decided was, well, it's taking us too long to get access to the site, to do meaningful things to the site. The best thing we can do right now is help you with link building. But we know that you're not going to do anything for link building because getting your bureaucracy behind that is just going to take forever. And so what can we do? Well, we know you have locations. We know those are under optimized. Maybe what we should be doing is getting you a bunch of citations for your locations, and those will have two different benefits. One, they'll help you with local rankings, which you're totally not targeting at the moment. And two, they're going to get you links. Suddenly, we'll just, for one listing, we'll suddenly get you 50 links, which you didn't have before. And so, you can't, we're seeing this across a lot of clients right now, particularly multi-location clients, is there's this, with really big brands, there's this silo thing happening where the local team is over here and the national team is over there from an SEO point of view. And they talk to each other, but they're kind of on different programs. And we see citation links as a way that, both sides of the house could benefit from that.
So Google, in the cause of truth or relevance, is giving weight to even national businesses having evidence of a base of operations?
Yeah, and so we see, it doesn't happen every time, but we certainly see sites that don't have a decent amount of links when we do a power listing or we just update their citations. Instantly, they get a benefit. Not instantly, but as soon as Google crawls them and indexes them.
There really is a perk to getting the link and the citation at the same time. That's so true.
Yeah, exactly. So great. Yeah, just to your point on, you mentioned Moz Local. So I think Moz Local is a totally fine product, and it actually is fitting I think in a lot of ways it was a really smart product because there weren't that many explicit, just give me the data aggregators, please, for a cheap amount. All these listings management companies, to some extent, provide some access to data aggregators. So we actually use Moz Local just to check that box. The challenge I find personally with data aggregators is, regardless of whether you use Moz Local or someone else to get in there, you can't rely on them to keep your data clean or fix the problem. And so if you're not in Info Group, you should definitely have your listing in Info Group. But having your listing in Info Group and fixing the 10 dupes in Info Group are two different things.
So if you are looking to Yext or any other tool to be the NAP cleanup tool that you've always wanted, you'll be disappointed. Will Yext ever be that tool that everyone's hoping for?
I don't think there'll ever be even an 80% solution to that because of the nature of the industry, of how all the different pieces fit together. I think I can definitely see Yext doing more. I mean, I don't have any special knowledge about what they're doing, but like I think it'd be great if they broadened the footprint of power listings. The challenge is that outside of the general directories, the verticals where I think Yext could be really valuable is all those verticals want to have a direct relationship with their advertisers. So I'm guessing they don't want to necessarily like TripAdvisor. I'm guessing is like, hey, like we don't need Yext for hotels. We're fine for hotels. So I don't think anyone's going to ever solve this problem in any. It'll be incrementally solved, but I think in 3 years we'll still be looking at it being like 50% solved. And this is why it's great to be in the local SEO business in a way, in that it's great to be a cancer doctor, in that there's a big need for you to help like connect, solve the remaining 50%.
It's frustrating to keep not only all the location information straight, but to keep combating others from messing it up.
Again, I don't want to be the, hey, I'm a shill for Yext, but one of the things I like about Yext is that feature of locking the listing at the publisher level on a Yellow Pages site or local search site is critical, because there's no other way to prevent any publisher from overwriting your data, even claim data, when they update their index from these data providers. And we just see, I mean, you can see it in Google, right? What percentage of your clients that have a claimed Google My Business page get their data overwritten in some way, shape, or form every month? 5%? What do you think? 10%? Some people have told me 30%. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. And that's Google claimed listing, right? So they're verified, you're the owner. And so you can imagine on these non-Google sites that don't have a tenth of the resources Google has, it's even worse.
It sure would be nice to find a tool that would do it all.
So I was sitting down with one of the top retailers in the country, the internet group, one of the top retailers in the country. And they were like picking my brain about this stuff a couple years ago. And I said, who is the owner of the source of truth for your location data? And this is the local internet marketing group. And no one knew. No one knew who had the spreadsheet that was, this is where it all comes from. And this is like a big brand. Like, you'll be shopping at this brand around the holidays. And if they don't have that stuff together, imagine like everybody else. So it's a problem that kind of slowly getting solved, but it's just endlessly complicated.
Put yourself in the potential client's perspective. Getting incorrect information sucks. I had a craving for Quiznos the other day and went to the store and it was closed. The online listing was still there. Very frustrating.
I'll tell you one better. This is we have a great client, Rock and Jump. They're a franchisor of trampoline parks. So they have about 30 locations around the country right now. Really fun. If you're looking for something to do, go take your kids to Rock and Jump. So they grow by acquisition, and so they acquired a park in El Paso, Texas called Jumpland Park. And when they acquired it, it never occurred to them that people might still be looking for Jumpland Park, and that they needed to have a solution. So for people who are looking for Jumpland Park to realize that, hey, this is now Rock and Jump. Because these guys just weren't, they're going out buying trampoline parks. They're not thinking, oh, what's the Yelp page for Rock and Jump, El Paso looking like? And I think it's a really common problem that a lot of businesses don't think about, is when you're doing these strategies that can affect online local, but you don't have anyone who at the table who like understands it to articulate, here's like the plan. So we have with all of our clients now who do acquisitions, they have the acquisitions team, or the marketing team that feeds into the acquisition team, has a little process document that they know they need to do every time there's a new location. Most of it says, call us, and we'll do it. But they need to be aware of all these things.
Speaking of things people should do, Do you have any resources or our listeners should check out?
There's a couple of resources that I'm really enjoying lately because they're pretty thought-provoking about business. So in no particular order, the A16Z podcast, I'm a big podcast junkie, has some really interesting people on there. This Week in Startups, if you're a Jason Calacanis fan, who I am, you will find his interviews really thought-provoking for businesses. And then I also really enjoy reading this guy, Ben Thompson, at stratechery.com. Probably one of the most interesting thinkers about just call it the internet industry right now. And you know, there's a million others, but certainly there are people publishing great SEO work. You know, the localu.org blog always has good stuff. Phil Rozek at Local Visibility Systems always publishes really interesting things, I think. I really like what Bright Local has published over the last year. You know, they're doing a lot of good industry survey type stuff. And of course, if you want to get super in the weeds, you can go to Linda Bouquet's local search forum, where they spend way too much time talking about local SEO minutia.
Yeah, I've noticed something gets posted on there, and Linda's on there that like crazy.
And Mike Blumenthal's paid forum also is great if you want to get like a smaller group of people conversation, but it does require a paid subscription.
Well, Andrew, it's been insightful to have you on. I know you have a free Chrome extension called Nap Hunter. Anyone should use it if they're going to do a nap cleanup, and go check that out. Are there any other shameless self-plugs our viewers should know about?
Well, I want to shamelessly plug Dan Leapson, because Nap Hunter, he is the one who basically created it. So he gets I'll give him 95% of the credit for it. And also, I think for those of you who are like kind of the future is now, you might want to start delving into Apple's new Spotlight search algorithms and seeing if there's something there for you or your clients. If you go to my site, applemapsmarketing.com, I think the last one or two posts, there's a presentation I did at SMX on optimizing for Apple's iOS search algorithm. You might want to check that out.
We'll include the links to all the materials and resources you mentioned, Andrew. Thank you so much for coming on the show and just clearing up Yext and citations and everything we need to know. And we'll have to have you on again.
Later, Jason.
Thank you for listening to Local SEO's podcast. Check out the website and magazine, Local SEO's Mag. If you enjoyed the cast, please be a supporter by subscribing, leaving a review, or sharing us on your favorite social network. I'm Jason Weaver. Until next time.